Today we're going to turn an old gas tank into a log burner. This is one of the cheapest arc welders I believe you can buy, in this country. Reading the reviews on the internet, this seems like one of the easiest ones to get into. It just requires some of these sticks, which I believe are called electrodes or welding rods. These came off Amazon. It was a bundle of 50 and it was £10. The welder itself came in well under £100, which makes it really affordable. It's one of those tools that I'm hoping is going to come in useful. Should I have something to do on the car, or, if you want to make a tool or something like this, you get lots of scraps. They often go to the tip, and, metal can be quite useful. When we bought this house about 2.5 years ago, there was a couple of these tanks in the garden. It always seemed a shame to take them to the tip. They feel quite heavy. I'm guessing there's still a bit of gas left in them. We don't have a gas barbecue. Don't really know what to use them for. I always thought it'd be a good idea if we could turn them into something like a log burner or a coal barbecue or something like that. But seeing as we've just bought the welder, I think it might be a good idea if we had a few little features to it. Cut it open, make sure all the gas is gone, and then see what we can do. So I think what we're going to do is we're going to start by trimming this lid off. Obviously taking off the valve, make sure all the gas is gone, give it a clean up, and we'll see what we're working with. Okay, we've had a couple of attempts now at filling it right to the brim with water, tipping it out. It's only got a tiny little nozzle on the top there. I don't want to be cutting into it, and then a spark from the grinder connects with a bit of the butane, and then boom, boom. So I think it's a bit of a pain. Oh, it's filling up. I guess it's how you know when it's full. I'm now confident that 100% of the gas has escaped. Using my square, I've drawn an opening for the door, and I've ground away the paint. I believe I'm gonna have to do a little bit more grinding on this side. And my intention is I'm going to then put a hinge on. I'm going to do the first cut here, weld the hinge on so it keeps it in place, do the other 3 cuts, and then that will keep the door perfectly aligned. The tabs at the top here I've ground off, and they're nice and smooth. I'll show you what I come up with next. Okay, this has been painful. This video is now, I think, 3 hours later. In between, I've had lunch as well. But it's the most unnatural thing I've ever tried for the first time. Other things I've picked up fairly quickly, but this just feels... I'm struggling to see through the visor, which I know is the point. But practice I can see is helping, but it's not pretty. But it's amazing what the grinder will do with the flap disc on. It certainly sands it down, makes it a little bit neater. I'll flip the camera and I'll show you what I'm talking about. So, I had a smaller hinge on here at first, and within a couple of welds, clearly I was keeping the rod too close. And one of these holes like these, it just melted straight through the metal and almost disintegrated. Okay, so this frame around the door is only put on because my idea of, welding the hinge on, cutting all 3 sides, didn't work. I'd had the hinge on slightly the wrong orientation and it wouldn't open nicely, it would get jammed. So then I tried to almost go freehand and put a mold grips, keep it on there, and it would open, but then once it was closed, there was a massive gap. So putting the frame on is a semi-okay feature, and it certainly hides my mistakes. Now, there's a closer look at my welding. It is not pretty. I've got some more infilling to do up here and down here. And I'm sure when I come to do my painting with a heatproof paint, it's going to cover up so many mistakes. So a bit of infilling, and then we're going to try and tackle the flue. Right, day 2. Sunday, complete failure. I was struggling to get this project together. Kids were running around and wasn't really able to concentrate. Felt a little bit guilty as well because I've worked all week, and then as soon as the days off come, running straight down to the shed and trying to tackle this beast. So, past couple of nights, I've been popping out to the shed, doing an hour while the kids are asleep. The wife's inside watching TV. It's getting better. I'm enjoying it more and more, but I'm still messy. The bits that I'm welding on now are getting stronger, but it all seems functional so far. The door is moving freely. I had a trimmer on the door, and that has since fallen off. So clearly that wasn't strong enough. I think the metal was really, really thin and was starting to melt in places. So that's not great. The first part of the flue is welded on. There was also a nozzle at the top of the tank. I've cut that off and cut a square, and I've welded a really thick, square of steel in the top there, and decorative feature. But also, it's going to be handy to keep the mug of coffee on there, keep it warm, or if you're ever using it in the garden, you could use it as a stove or something like that. It would certainly heat up. I'm hoping to put a temperature gauge on it to give you an idea of how hot this thing is going to get. But anyway, I'll turn the camera around and I'll show you what I've done so far. So like I say, it's not pretty. However, this door does move freely and it closes fairly flush. I'm going to need to put a latch across to keep it sort of airtight. But yeah, it's working okay. It's not too bad. Like I say, I did have a trim across there, but it fell off. But I reckon it's not going to be a bad thing being like this. On the top here, I cut a square because, like I say, there was a nozzle. There was air gaps around here. So what I've managed to do is sort of build up the weld and close up all of these air gaps here. What I'm thinking is that grind it and hopefully it will look smooth and pretty. So this is the flue. This is what I've just done this evening. It's solid. It's not going anywhere. I can certainly lift it. It doesn't feel wobbly. Turns out the wife's she shed is a perfect welding shop. I hadn't realised quite how messy working with metal is. It's the grinding and the dust. I've gone to bed with black bogies the past couple of nights because you inhale it. I probably should be wearing a mask. But yeah, I'm going to give it a clean up. And now that first part of the flue is on, I'm going to maybe try and light a little bit of a fire and see, if the flue gives a good draw or whether the smoke's trying to bellow out the front. Last night, I lit my first fire. The draw was really good, which I'm really quite pleased about. In doing the fire, it's burnt off a load of the paint, the blue paint originally from the tank. So next job is I've got to paint it. Now this is heat resistant paint, and apparently it's good for temperatures up to 600 degrees, which should be more than enough for this log burner. A couple of coats of that. We'll see how we get on. I'm also then going to drill a hole through the side of the workshop and install the flue. Install the temperature gauge and install the barriers around the side of the log burner that hopefully should protect the workshop against the heat from the fire. I'll put you on a bit of time lapse, and although I won't show the paint, I will show you installing the other little bits. Well, here she is. This thing has been a mission to make. To say that I didn't know anything about welding is an understatement. This thing was so hard to make. Welding was completely alien to me, and once again, looking at YouTube videos, you would have thought it looks quite easy, or the people welding made it look easy. Turns out it's not easy at all. But we're here. I am so proud of how it's turned out. It's not pretty, but it's so functional. We've got a fire. We don't have any smoke in the workshop, and it's toasty. It's cold outside, maybe 4 or 5 degrees, and yet this workshop is lovely and warm. So I've gone a bit fancy-pantsy on some of the features. We've got a nice spanner handle, and on the lathe I turned a nice bit of hardwood into a handle, which, yeah, it's not getting hot, so I'm still able to open it, you know, without burning my fingers. Some of the bits of metal were salvaged from an old barbecue. One bit was actually the temperature gauge. I'm not sure quite how accurate it is because it's telling me it's north of 350 degrees centigrade. So maybe it's just because it's in direct contact with the fire, or maybe it's in the wrong place. But it's a nice little feature. One thing I found is, since making it, the black heatproof paint hides so many of my errors and makes it look so much more professional. On the top here, I had to grind off the nozzle opening, and with that I've added a thick steel square plate, which you know, as you can see, has been perfect for cooking. I've actually mastered cooking sausages on top of this, so as well as a log burner, it's acting as a stove as well. Some of the forums I was reading into suggested that putting fire bricks along the bottom would prolong the life of the steel. Obviously, having many fires eventually will make the steel either brittle or just burn straight through. So I've lined the bottom with a couple of fire bricks. Turns out as a whole they didn't fit in, but they broke nice and easily, so I've done kind of a mosaic pattern on the bottom. These 2 sheets behind the log burner are actually old baking trays. I'm not sure quite how much protection they're going to give, but they're painted in the same heatproof paint, and also just means that the direct heat isn't going to be, you know, touching the OSB of the workshop, and hopefully should give a bit more protection. The flue is looking okay. It's warm. You know, it's giving a good draw. I think moving forward, I may be adding a bit of heatproof silicone just to make sure it's completely airtight along some of the joins. And but here it is. Yeah, I'm so chuffed. Would I do it again? Yeah, I think I would. Welding shouldn't be, you know, you shouldn't be put off welding because I've said it's hard. It's one of those things. Carpentry, when I first started, was hard. It's taking a lot of practice, and I don't think you know, it was fair to say that I was going to pick up a welder and it was going to be perfect. But yeah, we're here. The workshop's warm, and I'm happy. So total costs: the welder cost about £80. The welding rods, there were 50 of the rods for about a tenner. And I believe I used maybe 15 to 20 of those rods, so I've still got plenty left over. The flue I already had. I already had a bit of pipe that I've managed to salvage. The tank I already had. The fire bricks were recycled off Facebook Marketplace. Spanner I had. The hinge for the door already had left over from a previous door hanging job. So all in all, the real cost has been the welder. It's a budget welder, but it's certainly worked well. I'm looking forward to trying another project with metal. It's certainly not my forte. I think I'll be sticking to wood. But a big thank you to all of my subscribers thus far. If you're enjoying these videos, please give me a subscribe, a thumbs up. It really means an awful lot to see all your positive feedback. I hope you all stay safe in this current time, and have a good day.